Rayner and them, the research that they do, but if anybody's gonna make a motion for this, they need to make it contingent upon it being identified as a pier and not a single-family residential dock.
Yeah, I'll stipulate to that, if that's what it is.
Pleasure of the board on this issue?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask a question before we proceed.
Okay.
This dock, Amy, if you know, where does it fall in with the proposal we had a couple of months ago from the state to do the living shoreline projects? Is it gonna be, it was in front of an air in East Point. So
It's right in that same area. This is
Okay.
right, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
it's okay.
First of all, it's a pier, not a dock.
I'm just reading what I read,
I
bro.
understand.
But they've already made contingencies for that?
Right, this
Okay.
is going to be, this will stop just about where the living shoreline is going to continue.
So the
So
living
it's-
shoreline would be going up on that paper?
Right, the idea is, of course, is to get the pier just in the outside of the rocks, so you don't have the issue of kayaks trying to negotiate that.
I was just wondering.
And it also gives them a way of monitoring,
Yes.
walking out and being able to monitor
Sure
their
does,
living
yeah.
shoreline there,
Right.
which is something that I spoke about when they come here to build their living shoreline,
right.
was the monitoring aspect of that.
That's right.
Pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the pier being built by an
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
air.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then we have a recommendation for approval. It's unanimous consideration of a request to construct a single-family residential dock located at Lot 8, Block 56, Unit 5, St. George Island Gulf Beaches, 308 Wing Street, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed access walkway for the dock will be 16 feet by 8 feet, connected to a 40-foot by 8-foot terminal platform within a man-made canal adjacent to the Apalachicola Bay. The applicant has their DEP permit and are exempt from the Corps permit. Request submitted by Aaron Griffith, owner. There is a proposed home. This is the location map. It's off of this canal.
Who'd you say the owner was?
Aaron and Todd Griffith.
Okay, I thought I heard that.
So you won't get paid unless you approve this one. I'm just picking.
There we go.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries.
Can I ask a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
ma'am.
Pull that picture up of that lot back there where you can see the actual picture. I ain't trying to stir nothing, but look at this. Look at that house down here toward West Bay Shore Drive. The lot lines, you see how the lot lines
Yeah.
look like it's about 10 or 15, 20 foot into, you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I know. Right there?
The lot lines are a representation of where the lot lines really are. They're not, that's not a surveyed
Okay.
picture. That's just a
I was fixing to
representation.
say that house is in the right of way.
Right,
Or
right. but that-
somewheres.
Those lot lines could be shifted off by 10 or 15 feet.
I want y'all to know I'm looking.
Paying attention.
I'm watching. I'm not just sitting here.
Next, Ms. Amy.
This morning we have a request for a rezoning and land use change. It was recommended approval, unanimous. Consideration of a request, I'm going to make this larger. Consideration of a request for a land use change from industrial to residential and a rezoning from industrial to R2 single-family mobile home of a 2.5 acre parcel line in Section 13, Township 7 South, Range 5 West, 526 Mill Road, Carabel, Florida, Carabel, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Bevo Davis, President for Cabo Select Properties, and they're the applicants. And we do have a, I did let them know that in April of last year, I think 2016, we had a request for, I believe it was 10 acres to go to R2, and there was some opposition, and it later was not approved. But it did go through a public hearing and it was at that time not approved. So I did make them aware of that, and they're asking for a public hearing for their due diligence.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, is this the same one that we was dealing with on the Mill Road that we had the problem with there in the curve?
Sorry, I have to
The
look at
piece of
Amy,
property
but
there,
I'm
it
trying to remember.
bordered up to the fence line there, the old Buckeye Mill.
It's around that area.
I think
You know,
it
we
is
had
right
that-
there.
Yeah,
Are you talking about the rezoning that we had a couple, like,
Yeah, but they had
about 18
rezoning
months
a while
ago?
back.
was that Aaron? No.
That was Aaron Ray and Jeannie Dale, and it was in this area. Here's the mill, and it was in this area here.
Right.
And they requested R2 single-family residential as well, for approximately about 10 mobile home sites.
And this,
And there was
this
some
piece we're doing now
opposition.
is right there?
Yes, sir.
Right
This
there,
site
yeah.
is on the opposite side.
Okay.
How
Well, let
much,
me ask you something. You said they just want a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
So,
Well, they want the rezoning and land use, but it'll have to go through the public hearing in order for an approval, because we have to notify all the property owners that surround them.
well, we got to
And-
give them a public hearing.
Yeah.
All they're asking for this morning is a public hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got to give them a public
so moved.
hearing.
we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? How much property in that area is zoned industrial?
It's mostly, this area in here.
Well, evidently, the blue square was industrial
Yes.
too. So what I'm asking is, how much area in there is already zoned commercial? And are you gonna rezone the residential in the middle of an industrial area?
I
That's
don't
my
know the
question.
acreage.
I believe
Go on
that's
down
what-
one slide, Amy. I think I'll answer what he's asking. There's some residential already around the piece of property.
There's some residential in this area, and above Mill Road, there's some residential, and in this little area here.
And that star is where they're wanting to rezone?
That's in the approximate location, yes,
So
sir.
they're outside the industrial zoning?
No,
Actually,
they're inside.
right,
This,
inside.
dark line here represents the the I-1. And there's some R1 in this area here, and then it goes back to I-1.
Yes, you see what I'm saying? I don't particularly like that in the middle of an industrial zoned area. Number one, I don't know what kind of uses that Buckeye made of that site that they have there and what kind of environmental conditions
That's
you
right.
have there.
That's
And
right.
now you want to rezone to put somebody living next to an industrial site that I have no idea what's contained within that industrial site.
Yeah, 'cause we
Plus,
wouldn't
they're
let-
all within the industrial designation zoning category.
And across the street from it to the north, I guess several years back, they opened up and got all these water taps and sewer taps, down across it for a housing project.
In the middle of that industrial area?
And
Right
I-
across the street from it.
I believe it's
where
right in
they're-
this area.
Okay, so that's outside that
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
industrial
it's just right
zone?
across the street.
Okay, well, we got a motion and a second on the floor to take it to a public hearing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that comment and make my feelings known about encroaching in an industrial zoned area with somebody living there. And, and I don't know what's in the environmental.
Just for the record, so P and Z recommended in favor of, did they draw a conclusion about whether they supported this zoning application?
I said
Well,
unanimous.
they had concerns, but they did move it forward for a public hearing. And I did let them know that April 26th of 16, that Jeannie Dale had brought before the board a public hearing, and it was not approved. So they did know that just across the area, there was.
I mean, spot zoning is not illegal, it's generally frowned upon by trying to, you're creating a parcel of residential in the middle of industrial area, so generally, you're setting yourself up for conflict.
That's what I'm saying. If it was already zoned for,
Right, or you're gonna
R2,
take-
R1 or
You're gonna take
something.
half that industrial area and do a much larger, deal over, let's say, on the east side.
Look what's up, you got the industrial, you got a small cutout for residential right there, and right below that, Amy, it's back to industrial again, is that what that is?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy.
Well-
I mean, it's.
Well, see, what happened was, the industrial zoning was in place when I got here, because it was the old Buckeye Mill site. Whatever they owned, that's what it was. It was the entire parcel they owned, even though You know, we didn't look at a map to see, had Buckeye used that part or not used that part, we just took everything on the main industrial.
They
Well,
used
see-
all of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and they,
But what I'm doing is,
You just
what
said-
my motion is just to get.
right, at this
to a
point, we need to
public-
go to the public hearing, right?
I'm just giving them what they do.
That's back when Cecil Warren, Ike Wade, and them was here.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm just giving them what they do by law.
Anyway, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All opposed?
I oppose, and I'm gonna tell you the reason why. I've opposed all the public hearings and all the stuff concerning this land in the past, and I will continue to do that until I leave this board. I oppose it.
We do have Commissioner Sanders opposing. So that motion is completed 4-1. Anything else, Ms. Amy?
Yes, sir, I have a couple more. There was a recommendation for approval. It was a 4-1 vote. Chairman Murphy recused himself due to possible conflict of interest. It's a consideration of a request to vacate and abandon an existing 7-lot subdivision known as Southwest Cape Subdivision. Request submitted by Michael Schuler, Franklin County Attorney. And this is the second part of the Board of Adjustment request where we allowed this to be, to continue to be a buildable lot through a variance, being less than 1 acre. And what they're wanting to do is vacate the Southwest Shoals subdivision, so there's no covenants, deed restrictions, and
And Commissioners, although it's not shown on this map, the abandonment of the 7-lot subdivision will also include an abandonment of Lot 7 north of Tom Roberts Road, so that at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, assuming the board votes in favor of the plat abandonment, Capital City Bank will have a 7/10 of an acre meets and bounds lot that you have granted the variance for to become buildable. They will be released also from the plat restrictions and covenants. Then Franklin County will end up with all of the land south of Tom Roberts Road in public ownership, also free of the plat restrictions and the restrictive covenants.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask a question just to clarify. Is it all land south of Tom Roberts, or just what we're looking at that's got the red line around it?
All of Southwest Cape, south
Okay.
of Tom Roberts, which is bounded, generally speaking, by that red boundary
Okay.
line, Commissioner Jones.
We do have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
okay. We have a couple of plat approvals. We have a recommendation for a unanimous consideration of a request for a final plat approval of a 3-lot subdivision on a 6.54 acre parcel lying in Section 23, Township 8, Range 6 West, also known as Lot 2, Emerald Point, 1301 Highway 98, East Point, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Dan Garlick, Garlick Environmental Associates, agent for Helen Clausen, applicant. I believe it was earlier in the spring, we did a sketch plat approval for Helen Clausen for Gray Eagle, and it is about 2 doors down. It's in this location here. It's just past the Franklin County School, and there was 3 contiguous lots.
Weren't we just dealing with this here a while back?
It was a sketch plat approval, yes, sir. There's a two-part process, sketch and final plat, and this is the final plat approval.
We've already approved the sketch plat.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure of the board.
moved.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey,
Second.
second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed?
I oppose the sketch plat. I oppose this.
Let the record reflect 4-1. Commissioner Sanders opposing.
I remember my votes. Mm.
Next.
Okay. And we have another recommended approval, unanimous consideration of a request for final plat approval of a 1-lot subdivision called Preston's Place, also known as lots 18 and 19, Windjammer Village, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Shirley Ann Richardson, the applicant. And this is in the plantation, and it's 2 lots. There's 1 house on the property, and they're just wanting to combine the lots with 1 house. No more than 1 house for the lots.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask a question.
Mhm.
I want to make sure, this is one we've talked about before, and like you said, they're not trying to make a space to build more houses, they're just making it all
They
one
will
piece of
not be
property.
allowed.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Jones, by combining the lots, they end up permanently with 1 less house.
Right.
Okay. We have an eaves and overhangs discussion, and it was unanimous to amend section 220.56 of the Franklin County zoning code to read 220.56 setback line. A line extending inward from the parallel to the property boundaries within which development may be authorized. The area between property boundaries and setback lines as established by the zoning district will be maintained as undeveloped, open space exclusive of driveways, vehicle parking, and fences. And then the underline would be a discussion about a change. Roof eaves and overhangs that do not extend more than 24 inches from the outer face of a wall are allowed to intrude into the required setback and be fire code compliant for lots with smaller widths.
This is the language the board asked us to sit down together and come up with, and, all the great minds of the county, by that I mean Mark, and this is the language that he sent to P&Z, and for the most part, they approved it, and I don't know if there are any other concerns about the language.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mhm.
And not that, I'm not trying to confuse the two, but Amy, when we were talking about this the first time, I know it's about the eaves and setbacks, but there was also mention of, because some counties allow and some don't, people to have their stuff to do with the AC into the setback, but that's not being considered at
No,
all.
that won't be considered
Okay.
because with flood requirements, anything that has to be over, AC units will be required to have like a 4-foot by 5-foot platform. And if
Mhm.
it's over a certain height, they're gonna have to have accessible staircase to get
Okay.
to them.
Okay.
And, if it was a cantilever, but if it causes a tremendous, that we're not gonna
Okay.
place that
I
in
wasn't
there.
trying to confuse the two, I'm just trying to make sure it's all being,
And we're
you
just
know,
mainly talking about anything that the roof line or
Okay.
eaves would extend.
Mr. Chairman,
Mm-hmm.
why are we worried about the roof hangover, when we build a house?
Well, because it came to, there was, builders and architects were doing 2 different things, and I'll be honest, for a lot of my career, maybe before I got here, that we didn't realize that. So when we had site plans, this has come up because when houses were built that had overhangs into the setbacks, and now they're trying to sell them, and they need to get that clarified. And we didn't realize that they were over the setback, because the site plans that we showed a footprint of the house. You look at an aerial plan, you have, the boundaries of the lot, boundaries of the house, and some architects don't show the eaves on the site plan. And we were not aware of that. They were just showing the footprint of the house and didn't necessarily show the overhang of the roof. And other ones did. So some of these houses, the one that was up for sale, in fact, it was built by a local builder who traditionally had never shown the eaves on his footprint, because he was showing the exterior of the walls, and that's what he showed, and we didn't realize it. So we have this problem. We have some houses that have been built that we permitted and didn't realize because if there's not a house next door, you sometimes don't realize how close you are to the property line. In this case, these houses were built a number of years ago. Nobody was next door. The site plan didn't show the eaves. Issued a permit without a variance required, and now these houses are getting resold, and surveys are being done. And all of a sudden, they're encroaching the setback. So we have to deal with this thing. But now looking at it, other communities do allow the eaves overhang, and so we've had some members of the building, and I say we, members of the building community went to P&Z and asked this to be considered to be added in there so that we resolve this problem for the future. That's how it came up.
Go ahead, Dan.
Just curious, is this supposed to read roof eaves and roof overhangs? Or is it, I look at overhangs and you could be a cantilever deck. It'd be an overhang.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be roof overhang.
We'll
So it
include
should
it
be roof
too.
eaves and roof
Because
overhangs.
any other kind of overhang has to go to the variance procedure.
That's why I'm asking for clarification on this, just to make sure, because somebody comes in and says, I want to do a deck, well, you can go out 2 feet. It's on your cantilever, that's what I was just wondering.
It's specifically, I say this specifically for roofs. Any other encroachment would require a variance. You feel the variance?
Mr. Chairman, we will have to go out for public hearing on this, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll do, if there's no other questions, I'll do a motion to go out for public hearing on this, roof eve.
We have a motion,
Overhang.
we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing anything. I did last month. But, that concludes it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Amy.
Next will be a public hearing for a 5-year capital improvement schedule adoption. And we are about 30 minutes behind schedule.
Commissioner, before we move on to the public hearing, just to clarify for the board, in addition to what you just saw on the board that Ms. Amy had displayed for you, we'll need to add in some language showing that this needs to be retroactive based on the comments that Mr. Pierce had indicated. So whatever ordinance is adopted, if you approve it, the roof overhang issue would need to be adopted retroactive, because apparently we have a lot of encroachments that have been inadvertently created. And we'll also need to define what is meant by the word smaller lot. That was a discussion that the board had earlier, but smaller is not going to cut it from a legal standpoint.
So y'all gonna work on that before the public hearing?
We'll do that before the public hearing, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're through. All right, commissioners, you know, we do this every year, the capital improvement schedule, the part of comprehensive plan. It's a list of our current or future capital improvements that we put in, make it with an ordinance. And the county receives points on some grant applications for having these projects on our schedule. And it's something that's basically done every year, but we gotta treat this like a public hearing. So
It is a public hearing.
it is a public hearing, so, Mr. Chairman, you asked for public
Public
comment.
comment?
And if none, then we get comments from the board, and then we, guys can motion to approve.
This is a public hearing relating to the 5-year capital improvement schedule adoption. Any public comment?
This is essentially a wish list of ideas that you all presented to your staff over time as to what you want to see done, so we create a schedule. Some are legitimately, we know when they're going to be funded, and others, you say, are unfunded. So there are ideas that have come up, so we just
Put everything in there,
so we amended any time that add or subtract.
and we do a lot for the points that we get some grants.
There being no public comment? Commissioner comment? There being no commissioner comment, pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley to adopt the capital improvement schedule 217 to 2022. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Next will be Ms. Marcia Johnson, Clerk of Court.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm going to try to summarize my report. I have 10 resolutions for adoption on unanticipated revenue as part of our end-of-the-year bookkeeping that involve funds that were not included in the initial budget last year because we didn't know at the time the budget was adopted that the monies would be received. All of those funds have been spent during the budget year, and approval is needed to comply with Florida Statutes 129 to incorporate these funds into your budget. And you have copies of my report and the resolutions, which will be spread on the minutes. But the first resolution deals with $7,600 we received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for payment of expenses related to the CERT program. The second one deals with $13,904 received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for payment of expenses relative to the flood mitigation program. The third one deals with $17,706 received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for the payment of expenses relative to Hurricane Irma response effort. The fourth one deals with $257,677 received from the Florida Division of Emergency Management for the payment of expenses relative to the Residential Construction Mitigation Grant Program. That was the program you helped with mobile homes and stuff. The fifth resolution deals with $46,066 received from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for payment of expenses relative to the Sea Turtle Lighting Project. And I apologize, I just said about the mitigation, that was not mobile homes, that was the program Pam Brownell did with rehab of houses and things. Let's see. The sixth one deals with $36,150 we received from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for restoration of Island View Park project. The seventh one deals with $263,643 received from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection on the removal of derelict vessels. The eighth one deals with $127,705 from the Department of Transportation, resurfacing of Mill Road. The ninth one deals with $20,550 from the Florida Department of Transportation for the widening and resurfacing of Ellis Van Fleet Street here in Appalachia. And the 10th one deals with $108,117 received from the United States Treasury relative to the Restore Act program.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Sanders to adopt these resolutions. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I rode the road out there by your house. Yeah, they through with it now.
The Ellis Van Fleet, I think, is complete.
It looked good.
Yeah, it's very nice. That road really is used as a through road to other sections of Appalachia. A lot of traffic.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Next year, you'll see some of these same resolutions on the same topics. Island View's not done, so you're gonna have a resolution next year for revenue we're receiving now. Restore, you're gonna see resolutions. So some of these things, they're gonna be recurring.
And I wish we did know ahead of time, you know, so we could put the money in the budget, but we can't actually put it in there till we have received it. Okay, I also have two budget amendments that you've already agreed to move monies, but this is a formal budget amendments. The first one, they're both needed to adjust the budgeted line items. This one is in the Boating Improvement Fund to reflect actual expenditures made last fiscal year as grant match for the FWC Boating Improvement Grant that removed the derelict vessels. And we would decrease boating improvement infrastructure by $87,881 and increase repair and maintenance in the boating improvement by that same amount of $87,881. And the second budget amendment is needed to adjust the capital outlay fund. And at your July 5th, 2017 meeting, the board approved providing funding for the Mosquito Control Department software and equipment upgrade from your capital outlay fund. So we would increase the capital outlay other current charges by $3,270 and decrease capital outlay infrastructure by that same amount of $3,270. So I'd like a motion to approve those two line item budget amendments.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Those motions carried.